Am I the asshole for not letting my best friend have her wedding on my property after being uninvited? One of my 29-year-old male best friend Carla, 31-year-old female, is getting married soon. It's only meant to be a small backyard type of wedding, but they've been planning it for a few months now, and originally it was supposed to be on my property. They wanted it because it's private, has lots of open space for the reception, a nice view, and the house could be used for them to get ready and stuff. Of course I said yes. She and her fiance Rick were very happy. The thing is, Carla and I do have a history. We went out on and off in college but decided to stay friends. Then I met my wife, we got married, and Carla met Rick, and now here they are. Now my wife knows I went out with Carla back in college and she didn't care. Carla still went to our wedding and everything. I never knew if Rick was told or not. It's not my relationship, therefore not my business to say anything, so I never did. Rick found out recently and not in the best way. Not sure how, but from what I heard from friends is that one mutual friend told him no idea why we used to date. Not only that, but apparently Carla said a couple of years ago she was still in love with me.
Story time about my toxic ex-best friend. So a little background information. I had a very close guy friend who we're gonna call Max. Now, Max was 2 years older than me, but due to our families being super close, him and I became best friends. Growing up, I saw him as kind of an older brother, and then eventually as we grew up, I saw him as my best friend. Until I realized that he was actually a terrible person, and I missed all of the signs that he was not a real friend. Like one, our first fight, I told him something that I didn't want anybody else knowing. And what do you know, right after I tell him, my family knows, his family knows, my crush knows, all of our friends know. After this, I probably should have distanced myself, but he apologized and we became friends again. That was sign number one. Sign number two, his huge change in attitude. 1 second, he would be extremely rude to me, and then he would be this really sweet and caring guy, and his apologies were the best. So it was really hard not to forgive him. He was like a master manipulator. Number three, we only talked whenever it was convenient for him. Like seriously, we would never talk unless he needed something, like for part two. Part two about my toxic ex-best friend. I think we left off on sign number three, which was the only time that we would talk was when it was convenient for him. He would never reach out, which left me being the one who was constantly trying to preserve our friendship or whatever was left of it. Like all of our messages were literally me, and it made me seem really needy and like I was putting in way too much effort because he would literally answer with the most simple messages. Like, yeah, okay. Sure. And he would only talk to me whenever he wasn't with his friends. Sign number four. It felt like he was embarrassed of me. Now, I know that I was 2 years younger than him, but we were still friends, and I really don't think that's that much of a difference. Like, he would never want to be seen with me. The last sign, he would literally always talk about me behind my back. And I thought this was just rumors at first, until finally several people told me that it was not a rumor. He would say things like, oh, she's ugly, she's so immature, she's annoying and childish, she's so annoying. And then I finally decided to cut him off. Because if the bad outweighed the good, was it really worth keeping that person in my life?
Story time about how my crush sent my nudes to my family and my friends. Disclaimers are not my story time, is not on Instagram. I'm 17 going on 18. I've had the same high school crush since I started high school. He's the most popular boy in school. He's definitely a player. He gets all the girls, but then he pretends to be all innocent and pure. My problem was that I never realized how evil he was. Evil incarnate, like the devil. A little backstory. When I finally grew out of my awkward stage, boys started noticing me more, including the devil. He started trying to sit next to me every single day. At first I loved this. I mean, hello, he was my crush for 4 years. Slowly but surely he started talking to me and finally asked me for nudes. Part 2 is up. Story time about how my crush sent my nudes to my family and my friends. Disclaimers not my story time, send me on Instagram. After giving me the tiniest bit of attention, he asked me for nudes. And what did I do? You better believe I sent them to him like the dumbass I am. I literally got up to go to the bathroom in school and took some nudes. And I sent them to him. Then he led me on for about 2 weeks. He made me believe that he liked me and we started texting every day. He even snuck into my room one night and made out with me for like 2 hours. I thought he was like in love with me or something. Then one day I woke up to a horrible message. My friend telling me that my nudes had been leaked. Part 3 is up. Story time about how my crush sent my nudes to my family and my friends. Disclaimers not my story time, is that me on Instagram. I woke up to a message from my bestie telling me that someone had sent her my nudes. My stomach instantly dropped and I ran to the bathroom. 2 minutes later, my mom comes running in yelling at me, and my dad right behind her. They start banging on the door while I have diarrhea. They had also received the nudes. Can you imagine being in my place? I was grounded until graduation. My parents even took my phone and computer away from me. I finally got them back 2 days ago. But luckily, my crush was expelled and all his friends left him. I mean, what he did was pretty messed up. My parents are trying to sue his parents because I'm underage. But I still have a crush on him, you guys. I want to text him so bad. What do I do? Am I the asshole for stealing money from my broke-ass boyfriend? Disclaimer is not my story time, listed on me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I have been together for 6 months. When we first met, he got fired from his job, so I decided to start paying for a few things. For example, every time we go to dinner, or sometimes when we go on dates. But it's gotten to the point where I'm literally paying for everything. And now he doesn't even say thank you for it. He just expects it. Every time I tell him to look for a new job, he starts making up excuses. It's like he got comfortable having me pay for everything. One day I went to his wallet and I took out a 20. And then I did it the following week. I used that money to pay for his stuff. Part 2 is up. Am I the asshole for stealing money from my broke-ass boyfriend? Disclaimer is not my story time, listed on me on Instagram. By the first month, I had stolen $100 from his wallet and he didn't even notice. But because I was paying for everything in the relationship, I was using that money to pay for his half of everything. He just didn't know it. My job was hiring, and when I told him to apply, he said no. He said he wasn't in a rush to get a new job. Meanwhile, I'm paying for everything. The worst part is he asked me if he could move in with me because he can't afford his apartment anymore. His parents are not wanting to pay for it. I love him, but I don't know if I should say yes. By the way, I'm still stealing money from his wallet. Should I stop or should I keep going? Or should I break up with him? Best friend told my parents that I lost my V card because she was jealous. 2 months ago, I started dating a new guy at our high school. He was the new guy in school and every girl wanted to be with him, including my best friend. Now, before this, my best friend and I had never had any problems between us. She never showed herself to be envious or jealous of me, so I trusted her. And I literally told this girl everything. The new guy started showing me a lot of attention. He followed me on Instagram and DM'd me right away. Apparently, I reminded him of his ex, who he was obsessed with. One morning, my best friend and I are hanging out before class starts. The new guy walks up to us, says good morning to us both, and then asks me if he could talk to me privately. That's when my best friend says, "You can talk in front of me. I'm her best friend and she trusts me." So then he proceeded to ask me out in front of her. The look on her face was terrifying. She was so pissed off. Of course I said yes and he walked away. That's when my best friend said, "Oh my god, he's kinda ugly. Did you smell his breath? It stinks really bad. Why would you ever go out with that guy?" Then she says, "You better not go out with him." Part 2. And she said, "You better not go out with him or I'll tell your parents." I looked at her and said, "You wouldn't dare." She's like, "You're right, I wouldn't." By the way, my parents were very strict. They'd never let me go out on dates, much less have a boyfriend. The weekend comes around and I'm getting prepared for my date. So I told my parents that I was going to be with my best friend the entire weekend. And of course, they believe me. I sent her a text message saying, "Hey, I told my parents I'm going to be with you. So if they ask you, you got to cover for me." She says, "Of course I will." I go on the date with the new guy and it was so much fun. For the first time ever, I was treated like a girl. He held my hand, he was kissing my neck, and he paid for everything. Like I said, up until that point, I'd never really had an experience like that. I was falling for him quick. We'd gone to watch a movie and at the movie theater he started kissing me. Of course I kissed him back. That's when he asked me if I wanted to go back to his house because his parents weren't home. And I said yes. As we're driving to his house, I was so excited. So I texted her out of excitement telling her that I was going to be going back to his house. She replied and told me that I was a slut and that I was being too easy. She even asked me to send her a picture of what I was wearing, which I did. Then she replied, "You'd look like a slut." Then we got to his house and we started making out again. Part 3. When we started doing the dirty in his room. All while my best friend is slut shaming me. Could hear her messages come in as we're on his bed. I grab my phone and silence it and see that I have about 20 text messages from her. I read the first one and it said, "You better not be effing him right now, or I will tell your parents." But of course I ignored them. I was doing it with this guy. But to be honest, it ended pretty quickly. As I'm getting dressed, he says, "Do you need me to drop you off at your best friend's, or can you stay and have dinner with me?" This boy was trying to cook me dinner. Of course I said yes. I text my best friend and tell her, "Why are you being so mean?" I told her that nothing happened, but she wouldn't believe me. That's when I told her that he was going to make me dinner at his house, and this is when she got even angrier. She said, "Why is he making you dinner? What did you do to have to get that dinner?" I told her nothing and she wouldn't leave me alone. That's when she started calling my phone. Of course I didn't answer. 3 minutes later, I get a call from my mom. I answered right away and pretended to be at my best friend's. And that's when my mom told me that my best friend called her and told her the truth. So I couldn't lie anymore. Took me to my parents' house and they were furious. My parents told this boy that he has to marry me. He literally ran away.
Storytime about how my boyfriend was hiding his 2-year relationship from me. So a little background information, I was 18 and a senior in high school. And in the middle of the school year, I had a new student in my 4th period class who we're going to call Jose, and he was 17 years old and in 11th grade. Now, he wasn't technically new because I'd seen him around school and everything like that. But up until this point, neither of us knew that each other existed. So he gets introduced to the class, blah, blah, blah. He sits in the very back of the room. And I knew that this man was going to be my boyfriend. So when I got home that day, I was texting my friend about him. Thankfully, she gave me his Snapchat. Fast forward, we're talking and elevators get brought up. Now, in my school, you are not allowed to use the elevators unless you're injured or for some other reason. Well, he was talking about how he always used the elevators and nobody really cared. So I meet him at the elevator the next day and blah, blah, blah. We start flirting. And this led to him and I being super close. Like, we would FaceTime every day. We would always sit together at lunch, in class. Like for part 2. Part 2 about how my boyfriend was hiding his 2-year relationship from me. So like I said, every day after that, him and I were pretty much inseparable. We would FaceTime literally 24/7. We would always sit together during lunch, during class. Well, the one day I'm sitting in my homeroom and he comes in and he asked me to be his girlfriend. Of course, I said yes. So fast forward to Halloween, my family was handing out candy and he was going trick-or-treating with his family because he had younger siblings. And this is where our families were supposed to meet, but he didn't end up coming to my neighborhood, which I was super happy about. Well, then fast forward to my birthday. Our families were supposed to meet again, but it didn't end up happening again. And I wasn't really sure if this was the reason why things got weird between him and I. The one night I was over at my friend's house and Jose's on FaceTime with me. And I was talking about how I could pick him up and him and I could hang out. And he literally just didn't even say anything. So I was like, okay, is that a no? So then he was like, I don't know, I might be busy, blah, 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 like for part 3. Part 3 about how my boyfriend was hiding his 2-year relationship from me. So like I said, him and I are on FaceTime, I'm asking him if he wants to hang out, and he's being super weird about it, being super standoffish. Well, fast forward a little bit, he seemed like he wasn't interested in me anymore, and it really hurt my feelings, obviously. So he didn't talk to me the rest of the day, and then he texted me the next day. And he was telling me how different we are and how we barely have anything in common and how we rushed into things. Pretty much a bunch of shitty excuses as to why he thinks that we should break up. Well, after that, him and I don't speak for a few days, and then I had a fake account on Instagram. And after our breakup, I viewed his story the one day. So then I look at his Instagram story, he posted a picture of another girl with a heart. And then I found her account and she had pictures of them dating back from like 2 years ago. Now, still to this day, I don't know if he was cheating on her or if they were on a break or whatever, but I also thought that it was weird that they were dating because she was 19 and he was 17.
Story time about why you just can't bring some friends around your boyfriend. So a little background information, I was 17 and a junior in high school, and I had been best friends with this one girl who we're going to call Lily for about 2 years. Now, Lily and I weren't your ordinary best friends. We were the ones that would party together, but we would never talk about anything serious. And when I mean serious things, I mean like a secret that you don't want anybody to know. Just for a little example, the one time I told her that I thought I was pregnant, and clearly she knew that I was super scared, and I told her I don't want anybody to know, please don't say anything. In about 30 minutes, I had like 20 people asking me if I was pregnant, and then somehow my parents found out. She's also the best friend that you keep away from any guy that you like. Well, I have been dating this guy who we're gonna call Jared for 6 months. And obviously, now that I have a boyfriend, I've stopped hanging out with her as much. But my whole thing is she would never give me a heads up on plans. She would literally just text me and be like, hey, we're going out tonight. And I would text her back and I would be like, sorry, I can't. I already have plans with Jared. So this made her really upset, like for part 2. Part 2 about why you just can't bring some of your friends around your boyfriend. So like I said, she was getting very upset with the fact that she would ask me to make plans last minute and I would tell her that I'm busy with my boyfriend. And this went on throughout Jared and I's whole relationship. And it wasn't like I would ignore her. I would still hang out with her. I just wouldn't go and party and stuff like that because I respected my relationship. She would also always ask me to not bring my boyfriend to these parties, and that's another reason why I wouldn't go. So the one night she's like, listen, come out with me. You can bring your boyfriend. It won't be a problem. Which was a shocker. So I was a little bit skeptical, but I said okay. So we go to this party, and usually whenever I'm with Lily, I get really messed up. But I was trying to pace myself this night. And then she's like, come on, you don't mind if she gets drunk, right, Jared? Of course, him wanting me to have fun, he said no, he doesn't mind. She calls us an Uber, and then she asked for my boyfriend's Snapchat just so that way she could check up on us because I was too drunk. The entire ride home, Lily is blowing up Jared's phone, and we just think that she's trying to check on us. No. Instead, when we got home, he opened his phone, and it was actually Lily sending him a bunch of naked pictures.
Story time about my boyfriend's girl best friend. So a little background information, I was 15 and in 9th grade, and my boyfriend Jaden and I have been together for 2 years. In the beginning, everything was great, and then we went over to his best friend's house, which I didn't realize that his best friend was a girl. And at first I liked her. Her name was Anita, and she was super funny, super nice. Well, fast forward, it started to become a routine where he would drop me off at my house, and then I would call him, and he wouldn't pick up until like the 3rd time that I called him, and then he would be like, what's up? I'm hanging out with Anita. And I felt super weird because while we were on the phone together, him and Anita were in the car just talking to each other, not even acknowledging me. So then the one day I asked him if him and I could hang out, and he said that he wasn't going to bring Anita. Well, he pulls up, and guess who's sitting in the back seat? Anita. And they were playing sexual songs, which made me feel super uncomfortable. And she didn't say one word to Jaden the whole time, but she had so much to say to him while we were on the phone. Part 2 about my boyfriend's girl best friend. So, like I said, he said that he wasn't going to bring Anita with him, and then he pulls up, and guess who's in the car? So, fast forward 8 months, Jaden and I are doing super good. And the one day we're driving around, and he mentions that he has to pick someone up. Yep, Anita and her friend. So fast forward, we picked them up and I was feeling super uncomfortable and pissed off because Anita's like rubbing his shoulders and stuff like that. And then they dropped me off at my house. Well, not even 10 minutes later, they get into a car crash. Literally 10 minutes down the street from me, so the girls walk to my house. So we're sitting in the garage, and the girls are talking about how long they've known Jaden for, blah, 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 this and that. And how he drives super careful when Anita's in the car because he really cares about her. So I told Jaden that I'm not okay with him hanging out with Anita. And of course, when I text him, he's drinking with Anita. So then he starts calling me a bunch of names. Jaden and I are still together, and we have a 9-month-old daughter. He still hangs out with Anita, and I still feel weird about it, but I guess I'm just gonna have to trust him.